Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I've got a fun project for you today. Recently I was featured in a book called Scraps Made Simple by Moda All Stars, and it's just a great book using all kinds of pre-cuts and so much fun to do. This is my quilt in it, and I called it Missouri Crossroads. Now you guys know that for every quilt I make, I do a tutorial for it, so I thought I better give you a tutorial. Now we've made ours today with a different fabric, and look how fun that is. Isn't that great? It's just so fun to see what happens when you use different fabrics, and I just really love that. So to make this quilt, what you're going to need is 4 packs of 5-inch squares, and we have used Oasis by Florian Finch for RJR, and these prints are beautiful. I mean, some of them are just gorgeous. Well, they're all gorgeous, but I couldn't see how they were all going to blend. And yet the designers really know what they're doing, because look how fun this quilt is behind me. I mean, you can just see all those different prints, and yet it all comes together to make a beautiful project. You're also going to need, in addition to your 4 packs of 5-inch squares, you're going to need a roll of 2.5-inch strips, and we are going to subcut those into 2.5-inch squares. And that's our background. You're going to need those strips will also include this first border, and then this outer border is a 6-inch border, and you're going to need 2 yards for that. So for the back, you're going to need 4 yards, and look at this back. Isn't this fun? All woodsy and succulents. You might not know, but I'm a succulent lover. I love those little plants. And when you finish this all up, it's going to make a quilt that is 60 by 70, about, you know, right in there, and so it makes a pretty fun size quilt. So when you're ready to make this block, it consists of 2 different blocks. So we're going to make a 4-patch and our X block, and it just goes together really quickly. So the first thing we're going to make is our 4-patch. What we're going to do to make our 4-patch, and there's lots of ways to make them, but I'm going to take 4 of the 5-inch squares right here, and I'm going to pile them up because I want my block to be scrappy. So, and I think 4 really is about our limit. That's about how high we want to go. We're going to lay our little ruler along the side like this, and we're going to go ahead and cut this. Then I'm going to flip it, and again just lay my ruler along the edge and cut again. This is a little 2.5-inch ruler, so it's really handy for that. Now you're going to need 2 of these squares for every block you make, and you're going to need 2 background squares. We got our background squares by just taking our strip right here, and I like to leave them folded in half because you get 4 every cut, and you go ahead and trim these down. So we're going to cut our selvage, and then we're just going to come along here and cut our background squares. And it's easy because we can just lay our ruler right along that edge and cut, cut, cut. All right, so once we get a stack of those going, then we're ready to put our 4 patches together. So we're going to take our colors, and we're going to put a color and a solid, and then a solid and a color, just like this, and that's going to make our 4-patch. So we're going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to lay these right sides together, and we're going to sew these down, and we'll sew a 1/4 inch right down here, and then we'll sew them across this way. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. And here we go. Make sure we're all set up and going. And honestly, when you get ready to do your 4 patches, if you just have them all stacked like this, they will just fly together. All right, so now we have our 2 pieces, and what I'm going to do is nest my seams, but I'm just going to kind of finger press them at this point because I want to get, I want to get a bunch done, and you don't need to get up for everything because we'll go iron them all when we're together. But by finger pressing, we're able to just lay them down like this, and then we make sure that our seams are nested. We're going to start this edge like this, and we're going to come a 1/4 inch right across the top. Now you can pin that little section where they come together if you want. I just like to feel them and make sure they're nested together, and then it makes a nice little seam, and we'll see how we did right now. Ta-da! Hey, that looks pretty good. Let's go iron that down. All right, so now I'm just going to kind of set my seams and roll it back. All right. Now because we took a 5-inch square and we cut it, that means we had to sew 2 seams. So now it's a 4.5-inch 4-patch, which means when we're ready to do our 5-inch square over here, we're going to have to cut that down. So we're going to cut this down to 4.5, And we're just going to take our little 1/2 inch on the edge of our ruler and cut 2 sides so that it becomes 4.5. So we're taking a 5-inch square and we're cutting a 1/2 inch off of 2 sides. And just like that, this should be the same size as this, and it is. And that's what you want. When you're putting a block together, you want it to be the same size. So then we're going to take a few more of our 2.5-inch squares. We can finger press the little line to give us a sew line, and we are going to put one on each side like this, opposites of each other. All right. So we'll go to the sewing machine and we will sew those down as well. Now you're going to need 2 4 patches for each block and 2 of these little X blocks. And I know they don't look like X's right now, but I call them X's because they're part of a bigger block that makes an X. So basically we're just snowballing 2 corners of them. We're sewing on our diagonal line that we've finger pressed or drawn, just like that. And we're going to trim off these edges. All right, so now I'm going to lay my little ruler on here, come out about 1/4 inch and cut off on each side like this. Make sure you cut the right side. It would be dreadful if you didn't. You'd lose your little square, that's for sure. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and press these back. And the seam now is on the light side, but you know, that's just is what it is. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put this block together, and we're going to do a 4 patch and a X block. The X's you can see in this block right here. Your X block is going to go the same direction. And honestly, when I make a quilt like this, what I'm going to do is I finish a block and then I keep it right there so I can look at it. Because if you turn any of these squares, you get a whole different pattern and a whole different design, which is fun also. Don't forget to play with that, but this is kind of fun. So this one, we have our color coming in and our 2 X blocks, and then again our color coming in, and we're going to turn that way so that it has some contrast. So this is our block right here. We're going to take these, put them right sides together, head over to the sewing machine and sew those down. All right, I want to make sure these are lined up right here along this edge. Got my 1/4 inch going. We're not really matching anything on this, so we can really just kind of sail down the side. Okay, once you get your 2 pieces together like this, again, line them up to make sure that they still go, and ours are good. We're going to cross them over and we're going to sew them down. Now you might have noticed that I didn't press on that. Sometimes I get in a little hurry and I just want to see what something's going to look like. It's always a good idea to press, but on this block I've pressed every single thing else, and I think that as long as I'm careful, it'll lay down nice and easy, just like we like it. So now I'm going to head over to the iron now and press it. So here we go. All right, and that looks great. Now I've pressed from the top, make sure there's no pleats. I'm going to flip it over and make sure my seams go the way I want them to. I kind of like to do that because it can change the size of your block if you have pleats and things like that. Like right here's a little tiny bit of a pleat, so I'm going to make sure that's pulled nice and open. Give that a shot of steam. And here's our block. And then we get to assemble our quilt. So I have some blocks done over here. Let me move this out of the way. I have some blocks done, and this is fun to put together. So the way it's going to go, you're going to kind of zigzag it. So you're going to have your X block coming down. The X blocks are going to meet and go up. And then they're going to come down. So it's going to kind of chevron like that. Your next blocks are going to go together just the opposite way. So you want these to all come together 4 like this. And you got your, I always tend to look at these blocks, and this makes, because that's, that's where my eye is drawn, but this makes several patterns. So let's look at the quilt behind us and make sure that we understand what's going on. So this block right here is the block we're talking about, And this block starts on the up, goes down, up, down, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across, 7 down. Now you can see the different things. See how it squares up like this? If you start it with this block going in, see now ours has started going out, so we need to turn those so that it makes 3 blocks across, so it makes those 3 squares. And these are the 3 squares I'm talking about right here. We're at 4 patches in the middle right there. I mean, it just makes a really fun design, and just by turning it, you really can get a whole different look. So ours is going this way. We're going to flip these around and make sure that this all goes together how we want it to, so you can see it and make it yourself, because this is a fun quilt. All right, so that's it. You're going to add a little 2.5-inch border, and again, your 6-inch border goes on the outside. So I really enjoyed making this quilt. It's fun to see it in 2 different fabrics, so have fun making this. The pattern can be found in our Scraps Made Simple, and we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the Missouri Crossroads quilt from the Missouri Star Quilt Company.